Welcome everybody to the 400 subscriber Q&A extravaganza. Welcome everybody to the channel. Old Shaman here. Today we are going to be answering our 400 subscriber Q&A video questions that we got in my recent video that I had posted online. I didn't get a whole lot of questions asked, which is kind of unfortunate, but you know what? Got some good questions here. We're going to go ahead and answer those so that way you guys can get a little bit more history about myself personally, as well as some of my favorite things in my collection, my least favorite things, sort of that kind of stuff. So there weren't a whole lot of repeated questions in this video, thankfully, so that's a good thing, which means that we just get more content to mess around with, which I am happy to see. So anyways, let's go ahead and kickstart the video right off with Gear Third manga reviews and the questions that he asked. Alright, so first question, why is Dragon Ball Super so bad? No. I don't think Dragon Ball Super is bad by any stretch whatsoever. I love Dragon Ball Super. I think it is a great series. Do I think it's the best shonen of all time? No. Do I think it's better than Dragon Ball Z? No. But does that mean it's a bad series? Fuck no. The manga, in my personal opinion, I believe is a lot better than the anime. The level of progression as well as some of the arcs are just done a lot better. Cuts a lot of the crap out that Dragon Ball Super had in the first few arcs. It still keeps the very first Battle of Gods story arc, but it takes out that stupid fucking Resurrection F shit that nobody liked in the anime, and the movie itself really wasn't that great either. So takes out a lot of the bad content that nobody wanted to see in the anime, and simply gets down to the nitty-gritty and the more important stuff that we like to see as Dragon Ball fans. So the way I like the manga progressing as of now, I like and enjoy. However, I do think that Dragon Ball Super can improve a little bit more. I'm anxious to see how they handle the Universal Survival Tournament in this recent arc that they just started basically publishing. So this month, we'll see how the chapter goes. If it goes well, awesome. If it doesn't, oh well. I'll still be reading it. So I don't think Dragon Ball Super is bad, but it's definitely not the best series of all time that I am aware of. Berserk Omnibus's win is the second question that Gear Third Manga asked. Honestly, at this point, Dark Horse, with the way that they're going in terms of sales, as well as how they're basically pulling out the single volumes and making omnibuses for them. They're doing the same thing with Gantz. They're doing the same thing with Blade of the Immortal. Berserk is probably going to get omnibuses when the series is finally complete. Now, I don't know when Kentaro Miura is going to finish his series up. There are rumors saying that he is starting to wrap up Berserk as we speak, meaning that the final arc is probably going to be well underway here in the next few chapters of Berserk. And seeing as we're getting them monthly now, we will see how things play out in the next chapter. So, honestly, Dark Horse, with their shady business practices, I would not be surprised if omnibuses are in the near future. So anyways, that's probably my that's my speculation for the omnibuses, but don't be surprised if they do come out. Serious or not, they probably will. Hyped for Mashima's new series. Fuck no. Fairy Tail is garbage. Raid Master's shit, so you know what? Who the fuck cares? He wants me to shout out Manga Mafia, who's a manga tuber, I guess. Shout out to Manga Mafia, greatest manga tuber of all time. Go check out his channel. He has some awesome shit. Go and check out his fucking channel. He's just a great and brilliant manga tuber. Anyways, thank you, Gear, for your questions. Really enjoyed reading them off. Fire Punch or Big Order. Now, I haven't read either of these series, but I can tell you from one thing in particular. Viz is advertising the hell out of Fire Punch. And from what I've heard, yeah, I don't know why. The series itself looks pretty bad. The artwork is sort of lackluster, and from the story that I heard, it's pretty fucked up. There's some incest, there is some cannibalism, there is some serious shit going wrong in this series. So, and then Big Order, which is basically the creator of Future Diaries' spiritual successor series. I've watched Gear's review video on it, and safe to say, it's probably worse than Future Diary, and Yeah, I don't know. But Big Order, it has an interesting concept to it. It has a stand concept, which is similar to JoJo, so it's kind of ripping off of it. But you know what? Who cares? But it doesn't have the incest or the cannibalism, so probably if I had the choice, Big Order would probably be the choice I would make. However, that's not saying much. That's like saying the shit I took yesterday was better than the shit I took today. So, honestly, probably would read Big Order. But yeah, anyways. Ever gonna give Blue Exorcist a try? I did give it a try years ago, as a matter of fact, when I owned the previous 1 through 5 volumes of it. You know what? Not my cup of tea. There was a period of time when Exorcist manga was just so popular. A series like D. Gray Man, Twin Star Exorcist, and then of course Blue Exorcist. A lot of people were hyped on it. The anime was super popular, and the manga was also super popular. So people were recommending it to me, and naturally, what had happened is I got onto the hype wagon, and the first 5 volumes were not for me. Not to say that Blue Exorcist is a complete shit series. I just didn't like what I read of it. So if it gets better later on, great. If not, then basically what I had thought about it in the beginning was true. That it's pretty boring and not really exciting. So that would be probably why I'm not really collecting Blue Exorcist. I sold off my first 1 through 5 volumes of it and probably never going to go back to it. So naturally, it's going to stay like that. But I have given it a try. Not really my cup of tea. It's okay. So, next question he asked is, why are you more grumpy and edgy than a 50-year-old man when it comes to new series? Kind of reminds me of Harold, to be honest. The context of this question of Harold Lauder, who's, I guess, a member of the manga community as well. He is on Discord. He's a pretty solid fanboy. We enjoy talking to him. He's pretty cool. But basically, the context of this question is Harold does not like reading new series for whatever reason. He simply judges them and then doesn't really offer a valid opinion on them because he's never read them, and he just says that they're shit. I tend to be a little hypocritical when it comes to this kind of stuff because at the times I don't agree with that, and sometimes I do end up doing that myself. For series like Magi and My Hero Academia, I've simply just said that I am not interested in reading those series, and I don't care about them. So jokingly, I say that those series are shit without me even knowing anything about them. Series like Magi, I plan to never ever read in my life. I might check it out eventually one of these days if I get seriously bored with my collection. But honestly, a series like Magi, I never plan to read. And so jokingly, on Discord I would say, or Twitter, I will say, oh, Magi shit, yeah, it's terrible, rip off of Aladdin, that kind of shit. So, yeah, I guess that'd be the best I can say to answer your question. It's just all part of the facade with my channel, honestly. It's just a persona that I take on, the whole angry, kind of at everything kind of deal. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't mean to do it, and I don't mean to act hypocritical, but that's just the truth, I guess you could say. I like bashing things for no reason as a joke. So, anyways, that's to answer your question. Thank you, Apollo, for your questions, and of course, staying subscribed to me. That is awesome. Kid named Jack, my bro, my homie, my JoJo tuber, kid named Jack, asked, dopest looking character in a manga, narrow it down to 3. This is a tough one. So I'm gonna go picking from my top 4 series of all time, and that is, of course, it's gonna be Blade of the Immortal, it's gonna be Vagabond, and then of course it's gonna be JoJo Part 7 Steel Ball Run. So I will go in that particular order. Starting off with Blade of the Immortal, I really enjoy. This is so tough. I like. You know what? I really enjoy the main protagonist in Blade of the Immortal, but I think one of my favorite characters is Shinra. Shinra is really cool, but you know what? Magi is also really awesome as well. The characters in Blade of the Immortal are just awesome. A lot of them get introduced in the series. Even some get introduced and start off to be like secondary characters, but then they end up, getting killed off. But it's so great the amount of character development that is in Blade of the Immortal. Highly would recommend that you guys go and check out that series if you are looking to get that fix of some of the really the greatest samurai action that you can ask for. All right, next is Vagabond. You know what? I'm gonna say Musashi. Musashi is one of my favorite characters in Vagabond. Of course, that's sort of a cliche response, but again, like Blade of the Immortal, Vagabond has some awesome characters. Like, I'm telling you, awesome, awesome characters. And I apologize for the pronunciations if they are really bad, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The main OG from Vagabond is my favorite character. So, definitely would say that he is my favorite character. And now Steel Ball Run. Now Steel Ball Run has a lot of characters as well. Again, a lot of these series introduce really great secondary and main protagonist characters. I would have to say probably Gyro is my favorite character in Steel Ball Run. The amount of emotion in his character development, as well as his development with not only Johnny, with Johnny, is just awesome. Definitely one of my favorite characters. And I know he says dopest, so I guess they can also be classified as the top 3 dopest characters in any manga. There are some really cool dudes in my favorite series, but definitely him. And then an honorable mention is going to go to Guts from Berserk. He is so dope. I mean, you can't go wrong with Guts. I mean, he is just a badass motherfucker who just kicks everybody's ass. I mean, that is the truth. So, thank you, Kid Named Jack, for your question. Really enjoy reading that one for sure. So, Rai Plays, another awesome manga tuber here in the community. He's been following my channel for quite some time now, probably since the beginning, actually. And he has some really awesome content, so guys, go check him out. But his questions are, what is your absolute favorite era of Dragon Ball? And now, this question, I don't really... If he means, like, the different various versions of Dragon Ball, like the license, I guess, like, he means Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, GT, and then, of course, Super. You know what? It's tough for me to say. I didn't really grow up with Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball wasn't really something that I had known from the very get-go. Dragon Ball Z was something I didn't watch until much later in its lifespan here in the United States. When it was on Cartoon Network, it was on the Buu Saga, and at that point in time, I had no idea what was even going on. So, and then GT, I didn't really, I didn't watch. So, it was on TV, but I didn't watch it. So, I guess now, if I had to pick an era, it would be Z, because that would have been an awesome period of time to live through, because Dragon Ball Z touched a lot of kids' childhoods, and I can see exactly why. It is probably one of the best, if not greatest series of all time, and highly would recommend that you guys go and check that out. But if that's what you mean by the question, great. If not, I'm sorry. Next is favorite Dragon Ball villain. This is often a changing question of mine, but I would probably go on a limb and say Frieza. Frieza is by far my favorite Dragon Ball Z villain of all time. He was able to push Goku to the brink of his, basically, Dragon Ball Z has been out for so many years now. I don't really care if it's a spoiler, but basically was able to push Goku to the brink of turning into a Super Saiyan. Without Frieza, there would not be that development with Goku. There would not be that emotional connection with him and Krillin. And then, of course, his ability to go even further beyond his absolute strongest basically combat ability that he had at the time. So without Frieza, there would be none of that. Ultimately, what the Frieza saga did was increase the development with not only Goku, but his relationship with other characters as well. So definitely going to hand it to Frieza. Honorable mention is going to go to Cell. I love Cell. I definitely loved the development he set up with Gohan. That whole arc itself was building up on Gohan becoming his own independent character, and then also making a name for himself in Dragon Ball Z, and ultimately to become the next main protagonist, which in the next saga kind of killed that, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But other than that, Frieza is definitely by far one of my favorite protagonists. And favorite anime video game. I really don't like anime video games. I don't think that they're really well made at all. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Dragon Ball Z Fighters, and that is a great game. Is a really awesome game. And honestly, as far as that game goes, I really enjoy playing it. But I'm gonna hand it out to Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, the very first game in the series. Awesome JRPG. Takes it back to the roots of turn-based RPG, as well as introducing some various Digimon to the lineup and offering a really interesting roster. The game is sort of dead now. The online play is non-existent, and of course the game is sort of out of print, so you can't really play it. But the game itself is fun, really, really fun. So if I had to give it to my favorite anime game, it would definitely be Digimon Story for this Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth for the PlayStation 4. Definitely one of my favorite games. Anyways, Rai, thank you so much for commenting and leaving some questions. And of course, Harold Lauder got to ask me a question. Do you ever wish that JoJo was made by Hiro Mashima? I think Mashima did an interview where someone asked this question in particular, and honestly, you know what? Mashima can draw. I don't necessarily care what your feelings of Fairy Tail are, because everyone knows Fairy Tail is shit, and if you like it, you know, it's tough to really get some credibility for that, but Fairy Tail is just not a good series by any stretch. But Mashima has some talent as an artist, not so much as a storybook writer, but he is a talented artist for sure. Now, as far as what the designs would look like, I don't know. Mashima has his own unique art style, whereas basically Araki has also his own art style, which he has adapted into both Part 4, Part 5, Part 6, Part 7, and Part 8. More or less found his style in around Part 6. Part 7, his art is just beautiful, and Part 8, it is awesome. Like, really awesome. So, I don't really wish it was written or done by anybody else, because I love the product that JoJo is now, and even if it were created by the greatest mangaka of all time, Osamu Tezuka, which is debated to be the godfather of all manga. If it was done by him, I wouldn't want it like that, because I enjoy JoJo for what it is now and how it operates in terms of both story and illustration. So definitely do not care for Mashima doing it. But, you know, if he did fan art for it, I'd check it out, not gonna lie. But yeah, thank you, Harold, for asking your question. Now, Danny didn't ask a question, but she did say congratulations to hitting the 400 sub milestone. And thank you, Danny. Appreciate that. I'll consider that your question. So thank you. Thank you for the support continuing here in the manga industry. So thank you. And how much do you find... So the TMG specialist asks, how much do you find yourself spending every month on manga? So a long time ago, I wasn't necessarily the smartest kid out there. When I first started collecting manga, it was way back in 2010, and at the time, Borders was closing its doors. So Borders was a very popular bookstore in the United States. For those of you who aren't from here or have Borders locations where you're from, it was a very popular book retail store, and they used to sell and discount their manga constantly. 50% off, buy two, get one for free. They basically were the Barnes & Noble before Barnes & Noble. In other words, the better Barnes & Noble. So I would go there, I would spend money on manga, and usually I would average about 5 to 10 volumes every month. And it was from money that I had saved up in middle school for doing, just oddball under-the-table jobs. Summer, birthdays, Christmas, you name it, I would save my money up, and I would basically budget myself. So as a kid, I budgeted myself, and then high school came around the corner, and my sophomore year of high school, I had gotten my own job. I had basically said, all right, I want my own money. I want to be able to buy things myself. So that essentially is what happened. I got a job, and I was able to purchase things for myself, but I had no budget. And so anytime I got a paycheck, it would just go on manga. 20 volumes a month, 30 volumes a month, 15 a month, that kind of thing. So naturally I was broke all the time, but I had a shitload of manga just sprung up around my room. Since then I've been a little bit better, and it might seem like I'm stupid and I buy like $100 volumes, but all that is budgeted. It's budgeted with how much I make per week. It's how much that I bring home per month. I mean, I'm an adult too, guys. I have bills to pay. I have a car payment. I have a phone bill. I have house payments. I have a lot of shit going on right now in terms of me spending money. So naturally, with the type of work I'm in, I get tips, and then I also add that to my current bank account, so that way I'm able to budget what I can spend per month. On average, I would spend about $200 a month in manga. That is probably the rough estimate in how much I spend. Any more than that is usually past my budget and will cause my bank account to go down, which I don't want. So I figure all this in, I calculate it out, and I actually make sure that I'm not going under budget for the month, because like I said, I have bills to pay, and I have to make sure those are taken care of first. Always make sure those are taken care of first. And then afterwards, any money that I have left over goes on manga, clothes, food, you name it. So that is basically what I would recommend to those who are wanting to start a manga collection. Always budget yourself. Apollo Gray couldn't have said this any better in his video that he made about collecting or starting a collection for manga, is don't be drunk. Don't buy manga drunk. Okay, don't just buy volumes out of no substance. Just buying, and never reading those volumes will do you absolutely no good. Always make sure that you take care of your series first and buy those other volumes that you want later. But yeah, that was a very in-depth question, TMG. Next is, what is your favorite shonen manga / anime of all time? So, again, this is a tough one. A lot of nostalgia points go to, of course, Dragon Ball Z. My very first shonen manga of all time was Shaman King, which is how I got the inspiration behind my name, in case any of you guys have been wondering. It was my very first shonen I ever watched and read, so it is probably one of my favorites, but it is not the best shonen of all time. You know what? I'm going to give it down to Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist is by far one of my favorite shonens of all time. It is definitely in my top 5. Hardcore series, great characters, great action, and overall probably one of the best and most satisfying endings that I have read in a manga to date. And very few series are able to craft that, and I think that's why FMA stands above the rest, because it remains one of the best shonen series of all time, and definitely is going to continue that legacy on because it is such a great series. So heart is going to go out to Fullmetal Alchemist by far. Now, anime-wise, this is such a tough one. I don't really watch anime, and usually I don't watch shonen anime because it drags on and on and on and on. I used to watch a lot of One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and then, of course, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super. But as far as what I would say is the best shonen, I'm going to say Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's a solid series. It's a very confusing and overbranching story with lots of conflict, including suicidal elements, depression, and the battles that kids have to face with coming of age. It is a deep series, and by far, it tackles all that by throwing in awesome mechs, okay, and then also really cool characters. So Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime, is really good, but you know what? The manga is really good too. So check out both if you guys are wanting to, but definitely, by far, check those out. And do you think One Piece is overrated? Now, depending on your definition of overrated, and sorry for the camera shakiness, it's my laptop, so it tends to do that. But anyways, One Piece being overrated, that's a tough one to answer because, for one, you have to take into account your definition of what overrated even means to begin with. And I don't know the textbook definition of overrated, but off the top of my head, but I do know that overrated mostly is implying that a series gains a lot of hype and a lot of praise and ultimately does not deliver on that aspect. And a lot of people have different versions of overrated. For instance, Berserk is a perfect example of this definition, is a lot of people think Berserk is overrated, but they think it is still a good series. Now, overrated and a bad series are two different things. Bad meaning that it's complete shit, and overrated meaning it's good, but it doesn't live up to the hype that it has behind it. So, Berserk, people think is overrated, and then some people think it's the best series of all time. Do I think One Piece is overrated? Yes, I do think it's overrated, slightly. I don't think it is the worst even in its worst arcs, I have not put One Piece down completely. I have not knocked it to the point where I'm like, oh, this series sucks, I will never read it again. I have never done that with One Piece. So naturally, I've always been there following One Piece, which means I still have things I like about it, even when it gets to its low points. And most of the time, it's not at those low points, it's at really high points. So I don't hype One Piece up so much to anybody who's wanting to read a shonen manga. If you want to find out for yourself, read it, enjoy it, and simply get your own opinion on it. Don't have to rely on myself for an opinion. I think it's a good series. So naturally, I don't think it's overrated, but it definitely gets a lot of hype. So, I guess that kind of answers your question. Do I think it's overrated? No. So that'll answer your question. Anyways, TMG, thank you for the support, and also thank you for the questions. So we're getting down to the last two. The Insurgent Master, are you going to make another manga collection video? And yes, I will be. As a matter of fact, for my 500 subscriber milestone, I will do a updated manga collection video, and I don't know when I'll hit that. I can hit 500 next month, or I can hit it in the next few weeks, or in the next year. I don't know. It'll be depending on whether you guys want to see that. So anyone who's viewing this video who hasn't subscribed to me already, go ahead and click that sub button, and we'll see an updated collection video in the near future. Anyways, Insurgent Master, thank you so much for your question. Really do appreciate the support and, of course, the question. The final question is by Dialcore. Sorry if that's not your name. I apologize. Why is Naruto so shitty? Honestly, I answered this question on the Naruto podcast. For those of you who aren't aware, I do run a podcast with a few other guys here in the manga community. I run it with Gear Third Manga, and then of course a few other manga tubers that sort of pitch in every now and then and sort of do guest appearances on the podcast, and we talk about a manga series in particular for that week, and then we kind of give our final thoughts on it. But Naruto Part 1 is, and I know people say it all the time, but it's the truth. Naruto Part 1 is a exciting shonen series. It's great. It has elements that normal shonen manga can't really attribute to very well. It's got interesting characters, and it's got interesting development, and then also a really cool concept, and that is, of course, ninjas being able to go out of their village, complete missions, and be able to basically bring back the spoils and rewards to their village in order to prosper from that. And essentially what Naruto started off as was a series where, of course, you are a ninja and you join a squad where you start out as a genin and you work your way through the ranks by doing missions, and then, of course, by doing those missions, you are given notoriety, and then you are able to complete your goals of becoming a top-ranked ninja. And it sort of deviated from that path after the Chunin exams, where the development sort of stops from there, and from then on it sort of gets a little more complicated. A lot of characters start to go AWOL, and then naturally the story deviates from that. We finally get, characters from the Akatsuki and this plot to steal the tailed beast, and just, it gets crazy, and it sort of deviates from that. So what Naruto, the foundation that Naruto had in the beginning, was interesting, and it was a good concept. But the later parts of Naruto, not so much. I understand that the person who asked this question has a One Piece profile picture, and there's always that constant argument of which of the big three is always better, which people defend it more. Most of the time in the comment section, it's usually One Piece fans bashing Naruto fans, and Naruto fans bashing One Piece fans, and then the Bleach fans, they're somewhere. Honestly, there aren't a whole lot of Bleach fans left, which is understandable. So, you know what? Honestly, I don't think Naruto is shitty by any means. It's not good in the later parts, and it definitely had a rough ending. But for what it was, I accepted it. I thought it was okay. And overall, the beginning of Naruto is great, and the later parts, not so much. But it's not shit by any means. I don't think it's the worst series I've ever read. So definitely by far, if you guys are wanting to check out a shonen manga, Naruto is your place to go to. I mean, it's a decent series, especially for new collectors. So that is it. That is all the questions that I had received. I tried to drag the video as far out as possible to kind of answer these questions for you guys. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you guys so much for 400 subscribers. I hope to be back for my 500 sub Q&A and even my 500 subscriber, basically manga collection update. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, keep collecting manga and have an awesome day. Peace out.